I still remember how the ocean breeze felt that night, like a cool whisper brushing against my cheeks, carrying the scent of salt and promise. Or maybe it was just my desperate hope, clinging to any sign that this evening would mend the fractures in my marriage. It was supposed to be a celebration of two milestones, my 28th birthday and 1 year since I said I do to Dean Holloway. We were at Sunset Valley Resort, perched right on the edge of a sweeping beach. The resort's outdoor patio spread out before me, lit by hanging fairy lights that shimmered under the moon. Tables stood in neat rows, each clothed in white linen, glinting with polished silverware. A jazz ensemble played gentle tunes near a makeshift stage. The entire setting could have passed for a fantasy postcard, except anxiety roiled in my stomach, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Dean was late. 30 minutes, then 45. Guests were sipping champagne, swirling glasses, and exchanging polite conversation. Every so often, someone would glance my way with a silent question. "Where is he?" I forced a smile and apologized, blaming traffic or a last-minute business call. Inside, my heart pounded like a runaway train. I'd planned every detail of this night, from the arrangement of white roses to the subtle seashell centerpieces, hoping it would rekindle the warmth Dean and I once shared. I'd poured my soul into these tiny decisions, the way I do with design projects in my professional life, trying to polish away every flaw. Angela Moore, my closest friend since college, was by my side, wearing a rust-colored cocktail dress that hugged her curves. She pressed her arm gently to mine. "Cynthia, you okay? You're trembling." I tried to laugh it off. "Just nerves. You know me, I fuss over the smallest details." She looked concerned. "He'll show." I nodded, but a lump of dread lodged itself in my throat. Right then, movement by the resort's grand entrance caught my eye. The doorman swung the tall glass door open, and in came Dean, hair disheveled, tie slightly askew, posture less confident than usual. My chest tightened at the sight of him. He was here finally, but something about his unsteady gait and distant gaze made my stomach clench. I took a step forward, summoning my rehearsed smile. "Dean, hey, you." Without warning, he brushed past me, staggering toward the stage. He reeked of alcohol, the sharp tang of whiskey or maybe gin. Guests went quiet, turning to watch in confusion. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, but I hurried after him, wanting to keep him from doing anything he might regret. Up on that small stage, Dean snatched the microphone from its stand. The band abruptly stopped playing, and a hush fell over the entire patio. Soft waves lapped in the background, the only sound competing with the heavy thud of my heartbeat. He cleared his throat. "Everyone, thanks for coming to this fancy celebration." His words slurred just a bit. "You all probably think I'm some super lucky guy, right? Married to Cynthia, the brilliant landscape designer, the caring wife." He chuckled, but there was zero humor in it. "Dean," my voice quivered. I stepped closer, trying to tug lightly at his elbow. "Maybe we should talk somewhere private." He jolted away. "No. Let me speak." His eyes swept over the crowd. "I married Cynthia because she had connections. You know, potential. But turns out buying me a fancy watch," he laughed, short and bitter, "doesn't make a marriage worth keeping." A stunned hush blanketed the guests. I felt every gaze stabbing into me. My mind spun. He was referencing that sapphire-encrusted watch I gave him months ago, purchased with the money I got from selling my mother's apple farm. He'd never shown gratitude, never wore it, and now he was flinging it in my face in front of everyone. Dean's drunken grin fell into a sneer. "So here's the thing, folks, I'm done pretending. I'm filing for divorce." My breath caught, turning into a gasp. Someone in the back let out a shocked murmur. Angela rushed forward, her expression horrified. The entire scene felt surreal, like a slow-motion nightmare I couldn't break out of. "Dean," I managed, voice cracking, "can we at least—" "Save it," he snapped, dropping the microphone onto the stage with a squeal of feedback. He glared at me, eyes cold. "Don't act surprised. You know this marriage was dead, and no amount of fancy parties or designer gowns can change that." I fought back tears, but they brimmed hot and furious. My birthday, my wedding anniversary, and he just torched it all in front of my friends and colleagues. The hush deepened, broken only by the distant crash of waves and the faint rustle of palm trees overhead. I felt dizzy, humiliated beyond words. My world had just cracked, right here in the romantic glow of string lights. I sank to my knees, arms wrapped around my stomach. Angela tried to pull me back to my feet, but I couldn't stand. The betrayal washed over me in waves, each stronger than the last. Then Dean seemed to recall something else, striding forward with fists clenched. Maybe anger, maybe regret disguised as hostility. He was steps away from me, too close, face twisted in disdain when a figure appeared from the crowd, cutting between us. "Back off," the stranger said firmly. That was the moment I first noticed him, Cameron Blake. I recognized his sharp cheekbones, the steady confidence in his stance. We'd never really talked before, but I knew of him an up-and-coming entrepreneur, rumored to be passionate about sustainable real estate. At that moment, though, he was just someone protecting me from Dean's rage. Dean glared at Cameron. "Who the hell are you?" "Doesn't matter," Cameron shot back, voice low and steady. He gestured to the resort security guards who rushed in to calmly escort Dean away. Dean shrugged them off, gave me one more venomous look, then turned and left, weaving unsteadily across the patio until the night swallowed him. Silence pressed heavy all around. Some guests whispered in dismay, some stared at me with pity. The tears I'd tried to hold finally slid down my cheeks, unstoppable. Angela crouched beside me, rubbing my back. "Cyn, sweetie, get up. Let's get you away from here." "I'm sorry," I croaked, no longer sure who I was apologizing to, the guests, Angela, or myself. Most people seemed paralyzed, not knowing how to handle the wreckage of my marriage on full display. That's when Cameron extended a hand, gaze gentle. "Hey," he said quietly. "Take a moment. It's okay." My eyes lifted, meeting his. There was compassion there, not the pity or judgment everyone else wore. For reasons I couldn't articulate, that simple understanding made me want to cry harder. Still, I let him help me stand on shaky legs. "Thank you," I whispered, voice trembling. He nodded, then led me off to a quieter spot near the edge of the patio. The string lights were still flickering overhead, mocking me with their cheer. From where we stood, I could see the ocean stretching dark and endless. The sobs that ripped through me had no dignity, but I couldn't restrain them. Cameron rested a hand on my shoulder. "You don't deserve what he did," he murmured. "You shouldn't ever have to face that alone." It felt surreal, letting a near stranger comfort me after my ex-husband Toby just tore me down. But in that shattered moment, I needed any solace I could grasp. Eventually, Angela steered me toward a waiting car. Most of the guests dispersed, mumbling condolences or hushed shock. My grand night had collapsed into a tragedy, and I was left with a heart that felt battered beyond repair. Just before I stepped into the car, I glanced back. Under the golden glow of the resort's lanterns, Cameron caught my eye. He offered a slight nod, half sympathy, half silent promise that I wasn't alone in this. In the midst of that swirling chaos, it was the only warmth I felt. And so, Chapter 1. Of my life's new reality ended in heartbreak, shame, and the faintest flicker of hope I could barely comprehend. By the time I stumbled back into the resort's lobby lounge, it was well past midnight. I'd spent an hour sobbing in Angela's car, then asked her to drop me off right where the humiliation began. A strange instinct pulled me back inside. I wasn't ready to face my empty apartment, with all its reminders of Dean. The Sunset Valley Resort looked different after midnight, quieter, with staff discreetly tidying away leftover glassware and folded tablecloths. My eyes stung from crying. My tear-smudged mascara probably made me look like a haunted raccoon, but I just didn't care. Angela trailed behind me, uncertain. "Cyn, you sure you want to be here?" I exhaled shakily. "I just need closure, I guess. You can go if you want. I promise I'll be fine." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I'll wait in the side lounge for a bit. Let me know if you need anything." While she wandered off, I slipped outside to the same ocean-facing patio we'd used for my fiasco of a party. Most of the overhead lights were dimmed now, leaving only the moon and a few wall sconces. Waves crashed in the darkness. My heels clicked against the wooden planks, echoing an eerie emptiness. I paused where the stage had been earlier, as if scanning for shards of my pride. Instead, I found the memory of Dean's voice slicing through me. I'm filing for divorce. No fancy watch can save us. My eyes burned again. Then I sensed movement near the railing. I froze. Fear jolting up my spine. Was Dean back? But stepping closer, I recognized that tall figure with broad shoulders and neatly combed hair. Cameron. He turned at my approach, a trace of surprise flitting across his face. Cynthia. I managed a weary smile. Didn't think anyone else would still be here. He nodded toward the ocean. I couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get some fresh air. I joined him at the railing, resting my palms on the varnished wood. Salt-laced wind brushed my hair back. In the moonlight, I could see the shore curving away, dotted with glistening tide pools. For a moment, we just stood in companionable silence. Then he spoke, voice low and gentle. "You're shaking." I inhaled a shaky breath. Yeah, it's been a rough night." He gave a grim chuckle. Understatement. I turned to study him. Cameron's jaw was set in quiet sympathy. He wore a crisp white shirt, the top buttons undone, and a blazer slung over one arm. "Thank you," I said, barely audible, "for earlier, stopping Dean from whatever he was about to do." Cameron shrugged. He had no right to treat you like that. His voice carried a quiet anger that jolted me. My lips quirked in a sad smile. I guess I always knew Dean could be cruel. Just never expected he'd go this public, you know? Cameron glanced away, as though trying to contain his frustration. "Look, I know we don't really know each other. I've only been aware of your work from a distance. But the way he humiliated you was beyond unfair." He paused, then offered me a folded handkerchief. "Sorry if this seems old-fashioned." I took it, tears brimming anew. "Thanks." After dabbing my cheeks, I sighed. "So you knew about my work?" He nodded. "I've followed some of your project's sustainable courtyard designs, the city park facelift you did last year. You have a distinct style, a kind of subtle elegance that merges seamlessly with the environment." The compliment lit a small glow in my chest. I'd poured my soul into those designs. It was strange to think a near stranger appreciated me more than the man I'd married. We spoke in hushed tones. I learned he was Cameron Blake, CEO of Blake Innovations, focusing on green architecture along coastal regions. He'd come tonight as a courtesy, invited by a mutual acquaintance. He hadn't expected drama, obviously. I let out a shaky laugh. "Well, you sure got a front row seat to my personal tragedy. Not exactly the most professional introduction." His gaze locked on mine. "Don't apologize. You did nothing wrong." My throat constricted. "It doesn't feel that way. Everyone was staring God. I just wanted them to vanish." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You can't let shame crush you, Cynthia. What Dean did was on him, not on you." Those words threatened to unravel me again. I realized how starved I was for kindness. For months, Dean had barely acknowledged my existence, except to criticize or snap. Having someone actually stand up for me felt surreal. Angela popped her head out the sliding glass door. "Hey, Cyn, everything all right?" I waved gently. "Yeah, I'm good. Just needed air." She lingered a moment, then stepped back inside, probably figuring I needed the space. Cameron cleared his throat. "Listen, I'm not here to push or pry, but if you ever need an ally or just want to talk design, let me know." It was such a simple gesture, an olive branch. And yet, in that moment, it felt like a lifeline in a stormy sea. "Ally," I tested the word. "I like the sound of that." He glanced at his watch. "It's late. Do you need a ride home, or—" I shook my head. "Angela's with me." Another silence unfurled, but it wasn't awkward. More like we were both searching for the right words in a sea of painful chaos. Finally, Cameron exhaled. "I know this is probably the worst night of your life, but I want you to remember you're more than that man's insults. You're talented, strong, and no one can take that from you." Emotion clogged my throat. To appreciate that. He offered a gentle smile. "If you ever allow it, I'd like to help you heal, whether that's as a friend or potentially a business collaborator. Or both." I stared at him, stunned by his sincerity. "Why would you do that?" He shrugged. "I admire your work and your spirit. You gave everything for a marriage that well. Wasn't worth your sacrifice. I think you deserve someone in your corner, whether personally or professionally. Tears pricked my eyes again. I don't even know you. His smile turned faintly sad. Then let's fix that. For a second, the warmth in his eyes almost overwhelmed me. Deep inside, I sensed a flicker of possibility like a candle's flame in a dark tunnel. But my heart still felt raw, and the mention of trust made me tremble. Eventually, Angela reappeared, looking anxious. "CIN, you ready to go?" I nodded, turning to Cameron. My voice came out hesitant but certain. "Thank you for being kind." He dipped his head in acknowledgement. "Anytime." I followed Angela to the exit, each step weighted with exhaustion yet tinged with a cautious, unexpected hope. In less than an hour, I'd plummeted from euphoria to devastation, then met a man whose empathy made me question everything I thought I knew about relationships. Maybe fate wasn't done surprising me. A week slipped by like a blur of heartbreak and avoidance. I holed up in my modest design studio, a converted loft tucked into the quiet back street near the old harbor district. The studio's walls were glass on one side, revealing a partial view of the coastline. Yet every time I looked at the sea, I remembered that awful night at Sunset Valley Resort. Clients started withdrawing projects, often citing sudden changes in budget or blaming scheduling conflicts. But I knew the truth. Dean was using his connections to sabotage me, whispering slander to anyone who'd listen. In that cramped space, with sketches pinned haphazardly on corkboards, I spent day after day wrestling with despair. I had stacks of uncompleted designs for a handful of smaller landscaping jobs, but each day I felt my motivation slip like sand through my fingers. One afternoon, Angela arrived, carrying a bag of takeout from a nearby cafe. "Eat," she ordered, setting the brown bag on my desk. "You're getting thinner every time I see you." "Not hungry," I muttered. "Tough." She fished out a sandwich wrapped in paper and shoved it toward me. "I'm worried about you." I sighed, unwrapping the sandwich half-heartedly. Everything's crumbling, Ang. I have no idea how to fix it." She perched on a stool, scanning the half-finished blueprint that lay across my drafting table. "Well, you can start by fighting back. Cynthia, you're too good to let Dean's pettiness ruin you." I swallowed a lump in my throat. He's probably telling everyone that I'm unstable or incompetent, and they believe him. He's the one with money and influence. He's also the jerk who humiliated you in public, so let him have his illusions. Angela pressed my hand. "But you gotta stand up. You're not incompetent." I exhaled shakily. "Remember the apple farm Mom left me? I sold it just to buy that watch because I thought Dean deserved something special. Now it's all wasted." Angela's eyes softened. "I know. You put so much hope in that farmland, and you gave it up for him." I couldn't stop myself from glancing at the corner shelf where that watch lay in its velvet box, dusty and untouched since the night I found it tossed aside. Every time I saw it, a wave of regret crashed over me like a bruise pressed too hard. "Anyway," Angela changed the subject gently, "did you ever call Cameron back?" My cheeks warmed. I'd exchanged a single text message with Cameron a few days prior, just to thank him again for stepping in. He'd responded with an invitation to a weekend expo on sustainable coastal design. I admitted, "He invited me to an exhibition. It's tomorrow." Angela's eyes lit up. "And you're going, right?" I hesitated. I was going to decline. I feel so humiliated like I can't face anybody. She crossed her arms. "Cynthia, if you keep hiding, you'll let Dean's lies define you. Going out there, meeting people, proving your worth, that's how you fight." My mind drifted to Cameron's calm eyes, the sincerity in his voice. There was something about him that made me feel safe, or at least less alone. After a moment, I mumbled, "Okay, maybe I'll go. Better than rotting here." Angela beamed. "That's my girl. And who knows, maybe it'll open new doors. You need a fresh start." Her words resonated, stirring a tiny spark of determination within me. In design, a blank canvas can be scary, but it also means potential. Maybe that expo could be my fresh canvas. "Fine," I said, forcing a half-smile. "I'll do it." That night, alone in my studio, I stared at the watch. My mind replayed everything: Dean's sneers, the orchard back home, the orchard I'd never see again. My mother's voice used to ring through the trees at harvest time. Apple trees take patience, but if you care for them, they'll give you sweet fruit. I shook the memory off, trying not to sob. Grabbing my phone, I typed a quick message. Cameron, thanks for the invitation. I'll come by the expo tomorrow. He replied almost instantly. That's great, Cynthia. I'm looking forward to it. I think you'll find it inspiring. Inspiring, huh? I needed a healthy dose of that for sure. Maybe seeing new design possibilities would rekindle the spark I'd lost. The next morning, I woke with a jittery sense of resolve. Slipping into a simple navy blouse and gray skirt, I collected my sketches and brochures, anything that might prove I still had something valuable to offer. Then I headed out, the sunshine glaring off the car's windshield as I drove toward the expo site, a large glass building near the city's newly revitalized boardwalk. I wasn't sure if I was ready for a crowd or ready to see Cameron in a professional context, but Angela's words echoed in my mind. You need a fresh start. And maybe, just maybe, this was the first step toward reclaiming my life. The Coastal Sustainability Expo buzzed with energy designers, architects, engineers, all huddled in lively discussions around prototypes and scale models. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, reflecting off the ocean. I'd never seen so many eco-friendly ideas crammed into one space. Wave energy converters, plans for reef restoration, concept homes built from reclaimed materials. I took a moment to steady my nerves. Not far from the entrance, I spotted Cameron Blake talking to a couple of well-dressed business types. He looked completely at ease, wearing a crisp navy blazer and dark jeans. Despite the formal setting, his expression was warm, his gestures confident. After finishing his conversation, Cameron's gaze fell on me, and he offered a small wave weaving through the crowd. Hey, he greeted, voice friendly. Glad you made it. I forced a smile. Yeah, I almost chickened out. He chuckled. I'm glad you didn't. There's so much to see here, come on. I'll introduce you to some folks. He led me past rows of display booths, explaining different projects along the way. I caught glimpses of underwater turbines, coral replanting initiatives, and ecotourism designs that included solar-powered cabins. It was a beautiful chaos of innovation. Eventually, we stopped at a large model labeled Marina Vista Eco Community. Cameron pointed at it. This is what I've been telling you about my plan to develop a coastal housing community that respects nature instead of bulldozing it. I leaned closer. The model depicted low-rise apartments set back from the beach, integrated with dunes and salt marsh areas. There were winding boardwalks and carefully placed garden plots. It's incredible, I breathed. You want to keep all the natural habitats intact? He nodded, eyes flicking over the model with pride. Absolutely. We can work with the land instead of fighting it. Use permeable pavements, robust landscaping. I've followed your designs for city green spaces, and I think your approach would mesh perfectly here. A flicker of excitement stirred in my chest. I'd always dreamt of large-scale, sustainable projects that truly cared about the environment. Dean had once dismissed that dream, calling it idealistic nonsense. But seeing Cameron's project with its thoughtful design reawakened my passion. He must have noticed my expression. What do you think? My lips curled into a genuine smile, my first in a while. It's refreshing. There's so much synergy. If you're open to it, I have ideas for integrating native coastal plants, maybe reinforcing dunes with plants that help prevent erosion. That kind of approach. Cameron's grin widened. That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you. I know your skill with blending nature and architecture. He paused, gaze flicking down, then back up. I'd like you on board as our lead landscape architect if you're ready. A wave of uncertainty hit me. Lead architect? That was a huge responsibility. And I worried about the rumors Dean was spreading. Would this damage Cameron's project too? I looked away, voice low. I'm honored, but are you sure? Dean's making me look like a liability right now. Cameron stepped closer, dropping his tone so only I could hear. I don't care about his lies. I believe in your talent. Plus, we can keep it professional contracts, deliverables, everything transparent. No one can accuse us of unethical favoritism. He laid it out so calmly, with such earnest conviction, it was almost disarming. I realized I'd been starving for exactly this, someone who recognized my worth despite the storm swirling around me. I'll consider it, I said slowly. He nodded. That's all I ask. No rush. Then he gestured to the bustling expo. Come on, let me introduce you to a few potential collaborators. I followed him around the expo, meeting engineers who specialized in tidal energy, a marine biologist advocating for seagrass meadows, and even a local official intrigued by sustainable tourism. Each introduction was a small step toward rebuilding my professional network. Through it all, Cameron's presence felt steady, like a buoy in choppy waters. When he introduced me, "This is Cynthia Ashford, a gifted landscape designer who merges ecological sensitivity with functional spaces," my heart fluttered. It had been so long since anyone had introduced me with genuine admiration. By late afternoon, after exchanging business cards and shaking too many hands to count, we found ourselves on the balcony overlooking the boardwalk. My head buzzed with renewed energy. "I can't believe how supportive everyone's been," I murmured. Cameron smiled. "Told you. There's a whole community eager for progressive design. Dean can't stop that." I stared at the horizon, sunlight reflecting in golden streaks across the sea. A gentle breeze tousled my hair. "I feel hopeful," I admitted softly. "And that's something I haven't felt in a while." He looked at me, eyes warm. "You deserve it." A fresh wave of gratitude washed over me. I thought of Dean's betrayal and how I'd let it define me for the past week. But maybe it didn't have to. Maybe this fiasco could be the catalyst for a stronger, freer version of myself. We parted ways with a promise. I would think about his job offer. My heart hammered as we exchanged a brief, lingering handshake. Something about that moment hinted at possibilities, both professional and personal. Driving home, the memory of his confident smile and sincere belief in my skills echoed in my mind. Dean's cruelty might have knocked me to the ground, but I realized I wasn't content to stay there. A new path had opened up, one that involved forging something meaningful for the environment and for myself. I returned to my studio with a rare lightness in my step. Yes, there were obstacles ahead. Dean's continued smear campaign, my lingering heartbreak, the uncertainty of launching a massive project. But for the first time since my marriage went up in flames, I felt the stirring of ambition coursing through my veins again. I was Cynthia Ashford, a designer, a dreamer, and I wasn't done yet. I remember the first time I walked into Blake Innovations, I was half terrified and half thrilled. The building soared high above the coastline, its glass exterior gleaming beneath the sun. From outside, you could glimpse a panoramic view of the water-blue meeting sky in one endless stretch. Stepping into the lobby, I was greeted by bright, airy architecture. A massive living wall of succulents stood behind the reception desk, adding a fresh, organic vibe. The air smelled faintly of sea salt and lemon cleanser. My heart drummed a little faster as I checked in with the receptionist, a warm-eyed woman in a navy blazer. She directed me up to the 20th floor. The elevator ride felt like a countdown, each level a little jolt of nerves. By the time I emerged onto the top floor, my palms were slick, and I kept smoothing them on my skirt. "Get it together, Cynthia." I turned a corner and spotted Cameron Blake standing by a large window, absorbed in conversation with a slender woman wearing a crisp pencil skirt. He caught sight of me and broke into a smile, gesturing me over. "Cynthia," he said, voice as confident and calm as ever. "Glad you're here." I nodded politely at the woman, who gave a polite nod back. She had intelligent eyes, a sharp but friendly face. Cameron introduced her as Abigail White, legal counsel and strategic partner at Blake Innovations. Abigail's handshake was firm. "Cameron's told me about your designs. It's a pleasure." "Pleasure's mine," I said, trying to sound calm. Inside, I was shaking a bit, remembering how Dean used to belittle me in front of his own staff. Things are different now, I reminded myself. Cameron escorted me down a short hallway into a glass-walled conference room. Outside, the ocean sparkled under the midday sun. Rows of palm trees lined the coast, swaying in the breeze. It was the kind of view I'd once dreamed about sharing with Dean. Ironic how life turned out. We settled at a long table where a stack of blueprints waited. Bold letters read, "Blue Bay Master Plan." I traced the edges of the top sheet, excitement and anxiety twisting in my stomach. Cameron clicked on a wall-mounted screen and pulled up a digital model. So, he said, like I mentioned, Blue Bay is a large-scale coastal project housing, commercial units, a small boardwalk area, but everything integrates with local ecology. Abigail leaned forward. We've already secured environmental permits, but public image is crucial. We want to set an example that real estate can be profitable and still sustainable. I studied the plans. The layout had carefully curved roads that flowed around existing dunes, spacious courtyards for native plants, and a buffer zone near the water to protect fragile habitats. My designer's heart thrummed with possibility. I see you have plenty of green spaces, I said softly, scanning the blueprint. Maybe we can incorporate shallow wetlands for stormwater management. That'd help filter runoff and provide a habitat for local birds. Cameron grinned. Exactly the kind of thinking we need. He exchanged a glance with Abigail. That's why I was hoping you'd take on the Director of Landscape Design position. The term director made my stomach flip. Director. It sounded huge, official, daunting. That's a big deal, I murmured. Abigail offered a reassuring smile. We'll formalize everything in a contract. We believe in transparent structures, clear responsibilities, clear compensation. She slid a folder toward me. Don't feel rushed, though. I exhaled, flipping through the folder. It contained a proposed salary, project scope, a confidentiality clause, everything spelled out. So different from Dean's slippery business deals. I recalled how, with Dean, I was never sure what arrangement we had. He'd mock my design choices or use my contacts behind my back, never giving me official credit. Cameron must have sensed my hesitation because he spoke gently. I know you're worried about rumors, people saying you got this job because, we're friendly, or because of what happened with Dean. But that's why we want everything up front. No backroom strings attached. A warmth spread in my chest. I appreciate that, I said softly. Abigail's phone buzzed and she excused herself. Cameron and I were left alone at the table, sunlight pouring in. He pushed his sleeves up, revealing tanned forearms, and leaned closer. Cynthia, I want you here because of your vision. Not pity, not drama. You bring the kind of creativity we need. My cheeks flushed. For a brief moment, I envisioned the orchard I'd once owned, Mom's orchard. I'd parted with it for a man who never truly valued me. Now, in this bright conference room, it felt like I was at a crossroads. Accept a chance to reclaim my passion or let fear paralyze me. Okay, I finally said, voice shaking with equal parts adrenaline and relief. I'll do it. Cameron's entire face lit up, and I couldn't help but grin back. Fantastic, he said. Why don't we formalize it over lunch? I laughed nervously. You make it sound like a done deal. It is if you're in, he said. Let's sign the preliminary paperwork. Abigail can finalize details later, and then we'll celebrate. A fluttery excitement took hold of me as we sealed the initial agreement. When we left the office an hour later, I felt lighter, as if some invisible chain had snapped. Lunch took place at a nearby seaside cafe. We sat on a terrace overlooking gently rolling waves. The sea breeze smelled of brine and sun-warmed sand, and it played with the edges of the cafe's pastel awning. While we waited for our meal, grilled fish with citrus salsa, I found myself talking more openly than I had in months. I told Cameron about my earliest designs, how I used to draw elaborate orchard layouts for my mom's farmland. She always said, I recalled, that if you align with nature's patterns, you can create something both functional and poetic. His eyes softened. She sounds wise. I toyed with my napkin. I lost her around 5 years ago. Then the orchard went to me, but eventually My throat closed up. I hated admitting how I'd sold it for that watch. Cameron reached out, briefly covering my hand. You don't have to talk about it now, he said gently. I get it's painful. I swallowed hard, offering him a grateful nod. Then I forced a small smile. And this is definitely different from Dean. Cameron's gaze tightened just a bit. He never treated you as an equal partner, did he? I shook my head. No, and that's the nicest way to put it. A tense silence hovered before he changed the subject to design strategies for Blue Bay. We brainstormed new ways to incorporate community gardens, maybe a rooftop orchard for demonstration. The conversation bubbled with synergy, and I realized that for the first time in ages, I felt enthusiastic about the future. By the time we finished eating, my cheeks hurt from smiling. We parted outside the cafe, where the breeze ruffled our clothes and the sun lit up the sidewalk. "Cynthia," Cameron said softly, "I just want you to know I admire your courage. You've been through a lot, yet you're still standing." My chest tightened at the kindness in his voice. "Thanks, I'm trying." He grinned. "Keep trying. I'll support you all the way." Watching him walk off, a flutter ran through me, something timid but real, a hint of new beginnings. That day, as I headed back to my studio, I realized I'd come a long way from the trembling woman on the resort patio. I wasn't healed. Not yet. But I wasn't broken beyond repair either. Dean's shadow still loomed, but for once it didn't feel invincible. If there's one thing about Dean Holloway, it's that he knows how to twist knives. The sabotage began subtly, a lukewarm inquiry from a longtime client that suddenly evaporated into thin air. Another client used to praise my work, but they, too, vanished without explanation. I started hearing rumors, snide whispers that I was unreliable, unstable, even prone to emotional outbursts. Angela arrived at my studio one morning, a Starbucks cup in each hand. She wore a determined look that matched her crisp blazer. "Cin, you're not gonna like this," she said, handing me one of the coffees. My stomach knotted. "What now?" She set her phone on the desk, face grim. "I have a friend in a local architecture firm. She overheard Dean telling people you can't handle large projects and that you might be skimming budgets." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Seriously?" Angela's eyes flashed. "He's painting you as incompetent, maybe even corrupt, so nobody'll hire you. He's obviously pissed that you're bouncing back." I clenched my jaw, a sharp ache of anger flaring inside me. "He must have heard about Blue Bay somehow." Angela shrugged. "He probably has eyes everywhere. The man's a snake. You can't let him scare you off." I braced myself against the edge of my drafting table. Outside, gulls swooped across the cloudless sky. My once safe studio felt stifling, overshadowed by Dean's specter. "I won't back down," I said, though my voice trembled a little. "But it's draining, you know." Angela softened. "I know. I hate seeing you go through this." Then she noticed a small snapshot pinned on my inspiration board, a photo of me as a teenager, standing among Mom's apple trees. "You keep that orchard in mind, yeah?" My gaze lingered on the snapshot, those blossoming trees, my mother's gentle smile that was before everything went wrong. A pang of loss stabbed at me. Angela patted my shoulder. "Hey, at least you've got Cameron on your side. He's got the resources to fight Dean if it comes to it." I managed a shaky smile. "Yeah, he's been great." We spent the next hour brainstorming ways to preserve my reputation, from social media posts about my design approach to quietly letting future clients see real references. Angela even suggested I do a mini open house event at the studio to showcase my previous projects. The day had that suffocating hush of a coastal storm brewing, and sure enough, by mid-afternoon, thick clouds gathered, wind rattling the windows. I was about to call it quits when I heard the ping of a new email. It was from Brooke Holloway, Dean's mother. The subject line read simply, "I'm sorry." Heart pounding, I opened it. She wrote that she'd heard Dean might attempt to file a legal motion claiming the watch I'd bought was marital property. He wanted to drag me into court over that worthless chunk of metal. The gall of it took my breath away. Brooke added that she didn't condone Dean's behavior, and she felt some responsibility, since she'd raised him. She ended with, "Don't let him destroy you, Cynthia. You deserve better." Tears pricked my eyes. I'd always thought Brooke remained neutral, politely distant, but never openly malicious. Now she was offering me a warning, maybe a shred of motherly empathy. I pressed my palms to my face, frustration boiling up. Dean's vendetta was like a thorny vine creeping over every aspect of my life. How far would he go? That evening, the storm finally broke. Rain lashed the streets, the wind howling like an animal. Inside my studio, I locked up the windows, my heart heavy. I texted Cameron, "Hey, got some bad news, Dean. He's stirring trouble." He replied almost instantly, "I'm not surprised. Can we talk face-to-face tomorrow?" "We'll figure out a strategy." Seeing his message felt like a lifeline. My mind drifted to how supportive he'd been, how carefully he treated me, never once belittling my fears. Maybe this was the difference between a partner and an enemy, someone who stands beside you instead of tearing you down. As thunder rumbled overhead, I held the watch in my hand, that old wound gnawing in my gut. I whispered out loud, "Why did I sacrifice so much for a man who never cared?" The storm raged, offering no solace. All I knew was that I refused to crumble any further. For my mother's memory, for my own self-worth, I had to stay strong. The next morning brought a crisp clarity in the air, as if the storm had washed away the grime of the night. I met Cameron by the construction site for Blue Bay, right where the beach met a rise of sandy terrain dotted with hardy coastal shrubs. He stood near a temporary chain-link fence, wearing jeans and a button-down rolled to his elbows, pointing something out to a site manager. When he saw me, he waved me over with a grin that warmed my heart. "Morning," he said, passing some site documents to the manager. "You all right?" I let out a sigh. More or less. Reading that email from Brooke rocked me. Knowing Dean's next move is to come after the watch, it's so absurd. Cameron's brow furrowed. He's trying to keep you tangled in legal battles. Classic intimidation. We walked along the perimeter of the site, the sand shifting beneath our feet. A salty breeze ruffled my hair, and I could see a few gulls diving for fish out on the water. Bulldozers and cement mixers stood idle, waiting for final permits to break ground. Cameron gave me a gentle nudge. "You want to tell me more about your orchard? About why that watch is such a sore point?" My throat tightened, but there was a kindness in his eyes that made me feel safe. So I started talking, voice trembling. "Mom left me that orchard, apple trees my grandfather planted decades ago. After she passed, it was all I had left of her." Cameron listened, gaze never leaving my face. The sincerity in his expression felt like a balm on an old wound. I continued, "Dean would say things like, 'We need fancy gifts to impress clients.' He hinted that my orchard was, I don't know, a rustic relic. So eventually, I sold it to buy him that watch. I thought it'd prove my commitment." Tears gathered in my eyes, and I blinked them away, feeling foolish. "That was the biggest mistake of my life." Cameron's voice was soft, laced with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. I know what it's like to regret selling something precious. Once I sold my father's land to finance a risky deal that went nowhere. It took me years to forgive myself." I glanced up, startled. "Really?" He nodded, jaw tight. "I'd hoped it would expand my early business. But it backfired, and I lost a piece of my family's legacy. So yeah, I get it how that pain never truly fades." A bond sparked between us in that moment. We stood there, two people burdened by the ghosts of old mistakes, each trying to find redemption. "Dean told me the orchard was worthless," I whispered, bitterness creeping into my voice. "He made me feel like I was worthless." Cameron set a hand on my shoulder, gentle but firm. "You're not. And that orchard wasn't either." He paused, scanning my face. "What if it's still salvageable? Just because you sold it once doesn't mean it's gone forever." My eyes brimmed with tears again. "I don't even know if the new owner would sell." He shrugged, a quiet determination shining through. "Might be worth investigating. If you want, I can help with the search." A spark of hope flickered in me. For so long, I'd believed that orchard was gone for good, a symbol of my foolishness. But maybe there was a second chance hidden somewhere. The conversation drifted to site plans. Cameron pointed out how we'd place community gardens, maybe a small orchard demonstration. My chest squeezed at the mention of orchard, but it also felt exhilarating to shape a new future. As we wrapped up our walk, the sun climbed higher, bathing the site in shimmering golden light. Cameron turned to me, his tone softer. "Cynthia, you're stronger than you think. Dean's playing dirty, but we can outmaneuver him with honesty and determination." I mustered a shaky smile. "Thank you. I guess I needed to hear that." He opened his mouth to reply, but a site manager approached with questions, so he gave my hand a brief squeeze, then walked off to handle business. My heart fluttered at that small gesture. Back in my car afterward, I stared at the ocean for a long moment. The briny wind carried a subtle promise a hint that maybe, just maybe, my orchard wasn't lost forever. I've always enjoyed working late when the hum of daytime bustle quiets down and I can focus on creative flow. That night at Blake Innovations, the entire building was hushed. Most employees had gone home, leaving only the faint glow of desk lamps and the soft hum of air conditioning. I sat in a conference room with architectural sketches spread out, proposed layouts for Blue Bay, from winding pedestrian paths to strategic dune plannings. My pencil scrawled across the paper, shaping ideas that had floated in my mind for days. Around 9:30, Cameron stuck his head in. "Still here, huh?" I startled slightly. "Lost track of time." He entered, rolling up his sleeves carrying 2 takeout containers. "Figured you might be hungry." A grateful smile spread across my face. "You're a lifesaver." We set the food on a side table, aluminum trays clinking as we opened them. The smell of stir-fry wafted up, making my stomach rumble. We ate in companionable silence for a while, perched on stools next to each other. Eventually, I gestured at my sketches. I got carried away imagining new ways to incorporate local grasses near the dunes. They'd anchor the sand and also look visually appealing. Cameron nodded, leaning over the papers. His shoulder brushed mine, and a little shiver shot through me. "I like it," he said. "It's cost-effective too, right?" "Exactly. Once established, those grasses need minimal maintenance." We talked details, bouncing ideas back and forth like an unstoppable ping-pong match. My heart soared. This was how collaboration was meant to feel. When the conversation lulled, I realized how close we were, faces mere inches apart, my pulse fluttering. The entire office felt wrapped in a cocoon of quiet, fluorescent lights overhead casting gentle shadows. Cameron's gaze dropped momentarily to my lips. My breath hitched. He cleared his throat. "You, want to call it a night soon?" Heat rose in my cheeks. My mind jumped back to Dean's cruelty, how he would claim I was incompetent. But that memory flickered away under the warm intensity in Cameron's eyes. I took a slow breath. "Cameron." His voice turned cautious. "I don't want to overstep, but I can't pretend I'm not drawn to you. If there's a chance we could explore something more—" My throat went dry. It scares me. I can't lie about that." He nodded, features thoughtful. "I know you're dealing with a lot, and I'd never push you. But I do want to be close to you, in whatever way you allow." My heart pounded, torn between fear and longing. Then, letting my instincts guide me, I set aside my pencil and reached up, fingers curling into the lapel of his blazer. Before I could second-guess, I leaned in and pressed my lips to his. His response was immediate yet gentle, his hand cradling the back of my neck. It was soft, tentative, as though acknowledging the fragility of my bruised heart. A spark of warmth blossomed through me, chasing away the darkness Dean had left. After that brief moment, we pulled apart, both breathless. My cheeks burned, not with shame, but with a heady rush of adrenaline and something that tasted like hope. Cameron's gaze flickered with equal parts surprise and relief. I wasn't sure if you'd want that." I managed a shaky laugh. "Neither was I. But I do." My voice caught. "I want to move forward, not stay stuck in Dean's shadow." He nodded, brushing a stray hair from my forehead. "We'll take it slow, one step at a time." A tide of resolve surged in me. I'm done letting him control my emotions. If he wants a fight, I'll give him one legally, ethically, with everything I have. Cameron's lips curved in a confident smile. "We'll handle him together." We stayed there, arms loosely around each other, the hum of the overhead lights the only witness to our quiet vow. For the first time since my marriage blew up, I felt truly strong, like I was reclaiming my narrative. Yes, I still had scars and uncertainties, but I wasn't the trembling woman on that stage anymore. I was Cynthia Ashford, and I wasn't going to be defined by Dean's cruelty. When I finally left the office, the air outside was cool and still. Stars glimmered faintly over the dark ocean. Locking my car, I gazed at the gentle waves in the distance, inhaling a lungful of salty breeze. I replayed that kiss in my mind, tender, respectful, yet electric with promise. And I felt something shift inside me, a fierce determination to stand up for what I deserved. Dean might still lurk around, plotting, but I wouldn't cower. I had Cameron, Angela, and my own talent. More importantly, I had faith that I could rebuild. As I slid into the driver's seat, the watch flickered in my bag, its metal glinting under the overhead lamp, my old symbol of lost sacrifice. But maybe soon, with the orchard reclaimed and my new direction solidified, that watch would hold no power over me at all. It's funny how a simple press conference can feel more nerve-wracking than a live TV broadcast. Standing on that makeshift stage down by the beach, with the ocean breeze tugging at my hair, I felt my pulse hammering so loudly I thought people in the front row might hear it. Blue Bay had reached a major milestone. Cameron and I had completed the first phase of planning, aligning permits, local partnerships, and preliminary investors. To celebrate, we hosted a small gathering for regional press and eco-enthusiasts right on the sand where the development would rise. Tall banners flapped, showcasing our vision of sustainable living spaces hugging the shoreline. I stepped up to the microphone, adjusting it with a shaky hand. "Calm down, Cynthia. You've got this." Looking over the small crowd, I spotted Angela smiling encouragingly, phone out, ready to record. Cameron stood off to one side, arms folded across his chest, nodding in reassurance. I cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming today. My name is Cynthia Ashford, Director of Landscape Design here at Blake Innovations, and I'm honored to share our vision for Blue Bay." My voice steadied as I talked about preserving local dune habitats, planting native grasses, and creating a living environment that connected people to the coastline. The reporters jotted notes, snapped photos, occasionally asking about timelines or design specifics. In the corners of my vision, gulls wheeled over the waves, and sunlight spilled across the rolling tide. Everything felt hopeful, like I was stepping into my element again, until I heard a sudden shuffle in the back. The crowd parted slightly, and Dean Holloway strolled forward, wearing a crisp suit that didn't quite mask the contempt twisting his face. My heart lurched, but I refused to let fear grip me. I forced a polite smile. "Yes, any further questions?" Dean raised a hand, that cold smirk creeping in. "Tell us, Miss Ashford," he said smoothly, voice echoing through the small sound system. "How do you plan to finance all these eco-friendly fantasies? You sure you're not biting off more than you can chew?" There was a flicker of confusion among the press. Cameron stepped forward, expression taut, but I managed to respond first. "We have a solid plan, and the support of reputable investors." Dean gave a mocking laugh. "Right. Investors who might rethink their involvement if they knew certain background details about the people in charge." A hush fell. He was threatening me in front of everyone, a glint of triumph in his eyes. A reporter tried to ask a follow-up, but Angela swiftly guided them to look at display boards. Dean didn't budge. He angled closer, dropping his voice so only I and a few others could hear. "This is just the beginning, Cynthia," he hissed. "You think you're winning, but you have no idea." Before I could reply, he pivoted and melted back into the onlookers. No one tried to stop him. My hand trembled on the mic stand, but I somehow kept my composure, wrapping up the speech quickly. Afterwards, Cameron found me by a table stacked with brochures. "You okay?" His voice was tight with concern. I inhaled a shaky breath. "I can handle him," I lied. But the truth was, my heart hammered with dread. Angela told me she spotted an unfamiliar man snapping photos of Cameron and me together, then ducking away. Another of Dean's stooges, no doubt. As soon as the event wound down, I slipped off my heels, letting my feet sink into the warm sand. The afternoon sun kissed my shoulders, but all I felt was a growing chill from Dean's words. Cameron joined me, suit jacket slung over his arm. His voice was low. "He's not backing down. We need to be proactive." I lifted my gaze, seeing the worry in his eyes. "I hate letting him poison these moments," I whispered. "But you're right. We can't keep reacting. We have to defend ourselves properly." He took my hand, a gentle, affirming squeeze. "We'll figure something out. You're not alone in this, Cynthia." Thunderous waves crashed behind us, a stark reminder that nature can be as turbulent as human conflict. In that swirling sea spray, I vowed I wouldn't be Dean's victim any longer. The next morning, a tense hush filled the top-floor conference room at Blake Innovations. The wide windows reflected a stormy sky, clouds rolling over the ocean like a warning that the day wouldn't be calm. Around the table sat Abigail White, the sharp-minded attorney who'd become a crucial ally. Angela, arms folded, glare set to fierce, and Cameron quietly scanning a stack of documents. I eased into a seat, fiddling with a pen. "So," I said, voice quivering slightly, "Dean's officially declared war on this project. He's probably also fueling rumors that I'm incompetent or unethical." Abigail flipped open her laptop. "I did some digging. Dean's company, Holloway Finance, is on shaky ground. He's overextended on a couple of high-risk ventures. Any negative press or legal trouble could topple him." Angela leaned forward. "But if he's that vulnerable, why is he so confident? Shouldn't he be focusing on his own problems?" Cameron's jaw tightened. "He's desperate. He thinks if he knocks Cynthia down or derails Blue Bay, he'll salvage his reputation." Abigail cleared her throat. "I have another angle. If we can prove unethical or illegal behavior falsifying investor documents, predatory lending, he'll face scrutiny from financial regulators. That's where our leverage lies." A knot formed in my stomach. I used to overhear things during our marriage. Hush, hush phone calls, weird check stubs, mentions of shell companies. I never had the full picture, but it sounded shady." Abigail jotted notes. "Any detail helps, even small ones. The more we gather, the stronger our position." Cameron looked at me. "There's also the possibility of purchasing controlling interest in Holloway Finance. It's risky, but if we quietly buy shares through allied funds, we can gain enough stake to demand accountability." Angela's eyes widened. "So you're talking a corporate takeover?" Abigail gave a faint smirk. "Let's call it a strategic acquisition, done ethically, of course. We'd only be using standard market practices. If Dean's being reckless, shareholders might be eager to sell." My heart thumped. "We're going to fight him with truth and with business?" Cameron nodded. "Exactly. No underhanded tactics, no forging evidence. Just letting the facts speak. Dean's not unstoppable, Cynthia." A flicker of relief stirred inside me. For so long, I'd felt overshadowed by Dean's manipulations. But here, with this small group of fierce, determined allies, I saw a path forward. "I'll do whatever it takes," I said firmly. "He's threatened my livelihood and my peace of mind for too long. Let's end this." We spent the next hours charting out tasks. I'd list every suspicious incident I recalled from living with Dean. Cameron would contact certain investment partners he trusted. Abigail would begin scanning public financial records for any sign of wrongdoing. Angela offered to keep watch on social media gossip, countering negative rumors. By midday, the tension around the table shifted to purposeful energy, like the air before a storm that crackles with possibility. Cameron adjourned the meeting with a solemn vow, looking each of us in the eye. "We do this honestly or not at all." My chest felt tight, but with hope, not fear. "I won't let him bully me anymore," I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. Cameron glanced at me and smiled, soft, supportive. In that moment, I believed we could truly take back control of our lives. The next 2 weeks were a blur of clandestine phone calls and careful planning. Abigail guided us methodically, drawing on her legal expertise to stay clean while we exposed Dean's skeletons. I found myself sitting in discreet coffee shops with ex-employees from Holloway Finance, some honest folks who left due to ethical concerns. They shared stories of numbers being doctored, investor funds misplaced, hush-hush deals with questionable clients. My gut twisted with every new revelation. One morning, I met with a former accountant named Vanessa Cho. She was petite, with anxious eyes that darted around as if Dean might materialize at any second. "I tried reporting certain discrepancies," she whispered, voice trembling, "but they brushed me off. Said I'd lose my job if I kept digging." I recorded her statements, hands shaking, anger simmering beneath my calm facade. Dean's corruption ran deeper than I'd realized. Meanwhile, Cameron and Abigail arranged behind-the-scenes deals with a couple of small hedge funds. They planned to purchase shares of Holloway Finance quietly, so Dean wouldn't catch on until it was too late. Angela, for her part, became my personal morale booster, often bringing me coffee or texting me random memes to lift my spirits. In between these covert ops, I still had to juggle design tasks for Blue Bay. On good days, the project soared with promise. Meetings with eco-friendly engineers, site visits to finalize the layout of roads that wouldn't disrupt migratory birds. On rough days, I caught glimpses of shady strangers lurking near my office building, or I'd sense someone tailing me on the street. Possibly hired goons from Dean Paranoia, or reality. Hard to tell. Late one evening, Cameron and I found ourselves alone at Blake Innovations, reviewing a final draft of the site plan. Rain pelted the windows, lightning flickering in the distance. I rubbed my temples, exhaustion coursing through me. "Sometimes I feel like I'm in a spy movie," I muttered. Cameron gave a wry chuckle. "I know, but we're almost there. Soon enough, we'll have solid evidence, plus a controlling stake, and we can force him to back off." I studied the blueprint under the fluorescent lights, lines and curves representing the dream we were building. My heart swelled. It's surreal, you know? I once thought Dean's destruction had ended my career. Now look at me co-leading a massive coastal development that might set new standards. Cameron's hand brushed mine on the table. "You rose from the ashes, Cynthia." A warmth spread through my chest. "You helped me see my worth again." The hush that followed felt charged with more than just gratitude. In a quiet burst of daring, I leaned in to press my lips to his cheek, a simple show of affection that still made my pulse race. We parted before it escalated, mindful of the serious tasks still looming. By the time we left the office, the sky was clearing, leaving the streets glistening under lampposts. I walked to my car feeling a surge of determination. I'm not the same woman who cowered under Dean's humiliations. I'm stronger now, with allies, with love. Yes, fear still gnawed at me, especially on dark nights when I recalled Dean's threats. But the difference was, I no longer faced it alone. Just when life felt like it was gaining momentum, an announcement appeared on local news sites. Dean Holloway was set to be honored at the upcoming Coastal Business Summit, recognized for innovative financial services. I nearly choked on my coffee when Angela showed me the article. "That's insane!" Angela snapped, phone in hand. "He's knee-deep in shady deals. How's he even scoring an award?" "Connections, I guess," I muttered, dismay settling over me. Or the selection committee's clueless. Cameron caught wind of it within minutes. He called a small meeting in my studio, away from prying eyes. Just the two of us plus Angela. The room smelled of lavender oil and old blueprints. Cameron's jaw was clenched. Well, that explains why he's ramping up intimidation. He wants the spotlight to secure new investors, rescue his failing empire. And if we dethrone him now, it'll be a public humiliation. Angela let out a low whistle. He's gambling everything on this fancy event. He'll be at his most dangerous, but also his most vulnerable. I swallowed hard. "So that's where we deliver our proof? Expose him in front of everyone?" Cameron nodded, eyes flickering with grim resolve. "Exactly. By then, we'll have enough stock to call for a board review, plus all the evidence from Abigail's investigations. We confront him at the summit, ensuring he can't wriggle free with more lies." Butterflies fluttered in my stomach. I pictured the grand hall where the summit would likely be hosted, likely a plush, glass-walled venue perched along the harbor, filled with powerful business elites. "It'll be a spectacle," I murmured, pulse skipping. Angela's lips curved into a determined smile. A spectacle Dean won't soon forget. Still, dread coiled in my gut. What if he has a backup plan? But looking at Cameron, I saw no hesitation, only unwavering support. He reached for my hand, fingers intertwining. "You're not alone, Cynthia," he said softly. "We'll face him together and end this." Those words calmed the swirling fear inside me. I exhaled, shoulders loosening. "Let's do it." As I tidied up after they left, I caught sight of that cursed watch on my shelf reminder of the orchard I sold, the mother I lost, and the heartbreak I endured. My mind flashed to the orchard's apple blossoms, memories of sweet fruit and simpler times. One more trial, I told myself. Then maybe I can reclaim everything Dean stole from me, my dignity, my orchard, my future. Outside my studio's window, the sky showed the first hints of dusk, painting the horizon with purple and gold. In the reflective glass, I saw my own face, resolute despite the flicker of anxiety. He can't break me again, I thought, bracing for the looming confrontation. I won't let him. I grabbed my car keys and stepped out into the cooling evening air, thoughts churning about the summit. My heart was a drumbeat of anticipation. The final act was approaching, and for once, I had the power to rewrite the story. The morning sun glinted off the sleek high-rise where the Coastal Business Summit was set to unfold. Rising over the waterfront, the building had an airy glass atrium opening onto panoramic sea views. Precisely the kind of prestigious venue Dean favored, stately, immaculate, and full of moneyed power players. I arrived with Cameron by my side, each of us dressed in understated elegance. I wore a soft gray wrap dress that billowed around my knees, trying to mask my pounding heart. He, in a tailored navy suit, exuded calm focus, but I could sense his tension in the subtle clench of his jaw. A brass sign announced the event at the entrance, Coastal Business Summit celebrating financial innovation. My stomach nodded at the irony. Inside, clusters of attendees milled around, suits and dresses forming a swirl of hushed conversation. Polished floors gleamed under artificial lighting, and glass walls revealed the horizon where turquoise met the morning sky. Angela appeared from behind a modern sculpture, waving us over. She wore a fitted maroon sheath dress and held a small tablet. "You two good?" she murmured, glancing around to make sure no eavesdroppers stood near. I swallowed hard. "As good as we can be, I guess." Angela flicked her eyes to Cameron. "Did you confirm with Abigail?" He gave a quick nod. "She's on standby, documents ready to present. Once the official ceremony starts, we'll move in." Ceremony. My pulse fluttered. This so-called Entrepreneurial Excellence Award was about to be handed to Dean Holloway, the man who humiliated me at my own anniversary party, who tried to destroy my reputation for months. And now, ironically, we held the upper hand, ready to reveal our controlling shares and the evidence of his unethical dealings. My gaze landed on a broad signboard in the lobby. "Congratulations to Dean Holloway, leader in financial innovation." The letters made my mouth go dry with anger. Not for long, I thought, steeling myself. We stepped into the main hall, high ceilings, a stage draped in navy fabric, rows of plush chairs facing it. The sea shimmered through tall glass windows behind the podium. Crisp air conditioning brushed my arms, but I was already sweating. Cameron placed a reassuring hand on my back. "Remember, we do this calmly. No theatrics, just truth." I nodded, letting the warmth of his touch give me courage. Angela peeled off to find a strategic seat, phone in hand, ready to record or intervene. Cameron and I claimed seats near the front, scanning the crowd. Dean entered moments later from the side, chest puffed, hair slicked back, his eyes locked with mine in a brief, charged instant. I caught a flicker of unease behind his smug facade. Then he smirked as if to say, "You won't stop me." I breathed through the wave of revulsion, pressing my fingertips against my knees. The event kicked off with speeches about the coastal economy, rising real estate values, the synergy of tourism and finance. My mind buzzed with tension, hardly absorbing the words. Then the MC, a polished man in a charcoal suit, approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice echoing in the hush, "it's my honor to present this year's Entrepreneurial Excellence Award to a visionary in the financial sector, Mr. Dean Holloway." Applause rippled. Dean rose, chin high, heading to the stage under a spotlight. I sensed Cameron's steady composure next to me, Angela's intense gaze from a few rows back. I clasped my hands to stop them from trembling. Dean stepped behind the podium, smiling like a shark. "Thank you," he began, letting the applause die down. "This recognition means a great deal, especially in a region as dynamic as our coastal city." He rambled about innovative lending, how his firm had propelled local projects to success. My jaw clenched. I thought of the ex-employees who'd whispered about his deceit, the heartbreak he'd inflicted on me personally. The room seemed charged with static. After a few minutes, Dean launched into, "At Holloway Finance, we pride ourselves on integrity." Cameron rose. I followed, my pulse hammering in my ears. People glanced over in confusion. The MC looked startled. Dean's voice faltered, anger flaring in his eyes. Cameron addressed the crowd in a clear, calm tone. "Pardon the interruption. My name is Cameron Blake, CEO of Blake Innovations." He paused, letting the tension mount. It's come to our attention that Mr. Holloway's operations aren't what they appear. A ripple of uneasy murmurs spread through the audience. Dean's knuckles turned white around the podium. "This is out of line," he hissed into the mic, but Cameron forged on. "Blake Innovations has acquired a controlling interest in Holloway Finance," Cameron stated, voice ringing. "We've already initiated a full audit, and the preliminary findings indicate gross mismanagement, falsified investor statements, predatory lending. The details will be disclosed." Gasps and hushed exclamations erupted. Phones came out, camera flashes popping. My chest throbbed with adrenaline. Dean stood there, face pale, mouth twisted in shock. He'd never expected we'd be so bold. I found my voice. "Dean," I said, stepping forward, heart pounding but voice steady. "You tried to sabotage me, my career, my life. But truth has a way of surfacing." I couldn't resist adding, "You've harmed innocent employees and clients. This is the reckoning." He blinked, then forced a scornful laugh. "This is a farce. You have nothing." Cameron signaled to Angela, who tapped her tablet. "We have everything," she retorted, projecting a short summary of evidence onto a screen. Rows of damning figures flickered before the stunned crowd. Contracts, spreadsheets, even ex-employee testimonies. A tense hush fell, broken only by a few reporters snapping pictures and scribbling frantically. Dean looked ready to explode, his face blotchy with rage and panic. He fumbled for words, but the MC stepped in, stammering, Ladies and gentlemen, we might, need to take a moment." I glared at Dean, heart hammering. I remembered the worst moment of my life, that humiliating anniversary party. And now he was the one on stage, publicly undone. A swirl of conflicting emotions rose: anger, triumph, a thread of pity, but mostly relief. He turned his glare on me. "You set me up." I squared my shoulders. "No, Dean. You set yourself up." Cameron placed a calm hand on my arm. "Authorities and regulators will be notified. We'll see if there's room for any restructuring if you cooperate, but your award is moot." The hush morphed into an uproar of swirling conversation. Cameramen rushed forward. The MC signaled for a break, the official program collapsing in chaos. Dean, stunned, stepped back from the mic. I inhaled, meeting his gaze one last time before the security detail approached, uncertain what to do. In that locked glance, I saw raw fury, but also the beginning of defeat. Ket Chuang. I stood on that stage, Cameron beside me, the crowd swirling in an astonished roar. Dean looked like someone who just realized he'd been outplayed by the very person he once called pathetic. And I felt, for the first time since this war began, the weight of his power lifting from my shoulders. Backstage at the summit, the corridor was a flurry of footsteps and hushed arguments. I gripped my phone, heart racing as the echo of our public reveal still buzzed in my ears. Cameron was on a call with Abigail, verifying the next legal steps. Suddenly, Dean appeared from around a corner, jacket askew, eyes wild. Two security guards hovered behind him, unsure if they should intervene. He brushed them off, stalking straight toward me and Cameron. "Cynthia!" he barked, voice low but trembling with rage. "You think you can humiliate me like this? Ruin my career?" I stood my ground, though my stomach flipped. "You did that yourself," I countered. "We just pulled back the curtain." He sneered, stepping closer. "You're a fool. You think this stunt ends it all? You'll regret crossing me." Cameron shifted in front of me, his posture protective. "Watch your tone," he said quietly. "Threatening her in public again won't save you." Dean snarled, ignoring Cameron. "This is all you wanted, huh, Cynthia? Payback for our failed marriage?" A sudden calm washed over me. "I didn't want revenge," I answered, voice quiet. "I just wanted to be free from your manipulation. You left me no choice." His hands balled into fists, but behind the fury I glimpsed desperation. At that moment I almost felt sorry for him, almost. "Cynthia," he growled, "you'll be sorry you tangled with my business." I forced a bitter laugh. "Your business now belongs to the board and the law. If you want to do something about it, start by not committing fraud." I paused, letting the words sink in. "You humiliated me at Sunset Valley Resort. I'm not that scared woman anymore." Dean's face reddened. He opened his mouth as if to shout. then snapped it shut, footsteps echoing as he stormed away. The two guards glanced at me uncertain, then followed him. My limbs felt shaky with adrenaline. Cameron set a hand on my shoulder. That was intense. You all right? I exhaled, realization flooding in. It was over. The exposure was public, and no matter Dean's threats, he couldn't hide his wrongdoing anymore. I'm all right, I said softly, but tears of relief pricked my eyes. I feel lighter. We returned to the main hall where attendees buzzed with speculation. Many recognized Cameron from local business circles. Some pressed him for details. Angela found me, phone clutched tight. She practically beamed. It's all over social media. Folks are calling Dean a fraud. Investors are pulling back from him in real time. A rush of vindication swept through me. So it's finally real. Angela nodded, lowering her voice. Yep, and rumor has it the authorities might be investigating him soon. At that, my knees nearly gave out with relief. Cameron gently guided me to a nearby seat, ignoring the curious onlookers. Deep breaths, he murmured. I took one, then another, each exhalation shedding a piece of fear. The swirl of the summit carried on around us, stunned organizers, flustered sponsors, cameras still capturing the fallout. Ket Chuang. Angela's phone buzzed and she glanced at it, eyes lighting up. Media outlets are praising our evidence as conclusive. Dean's empire is crumbling. She paused, meeting my gaze. You did it, CIN. I stared at the stage, remembering the day Dean ripped my world apart on a similar platform. Now the script had flipped. I felt a quiet sense of justice, not petty triumph, just the clean release of a burden long overdue. Weeks later, the Blue Bay project site was a swirl of activity. Bulldozers, cement mixers, surveyors with clipboards. Each passing day brought us closer to shaping the sustainable coastal community we'd dreamed of. And with Dean out of the picture, nothing overshadowed my involvement, no rumors or sabotage. One early evening, Cameron and I strolled the sandy perimeter, reviewing progress. The sky blazed with oranges and pinks. Seashells dotted the shoreline. He slowed, turning to me, expression thoughtful. Cynthia, about the future. He hesitated, slipping a hand into his pocket. I've been thinking there's something I don't want to wait on any longer. My heart fluttered as he revealed a slender box. Opening it, I saw a delicate ring platinum band with a small, shimmering stone, not overly flashy, but elegant, a reflection of everything between us, honest, respectful, true. He drew a shaky breath. You came into my life at a time I least expected. I've watched you fight for your dignity, your career, for the orchard you lost, and I want to stand beside you in every battle to come. Will you marry me, Cynthia? Tears threatened. Memories of Dean's cruel public divorce announcement flickered through my mind, but they felt distant, overshadowed by this genuine proposal. Cameron, I whispered, voice thick with emotion. I never thought I'd trust marriage again, but with you, it feels right. He squeezed my hand, eyes shining. Is that a yes? I nodded, tears slipping free. Yes, I murmured, heart full. We shared a kiss under the sunset glow, waves rolling in gentle applause. The wind carried faint brine and the promise of new beginnings. When we parted, I laughed, wiping my eyes. I just realized how much changed in a single year. It's overwhelming. His gaze brimmed with warmth. A beautiful kind of overwhelming. News of our engagement spread quickly among our teams. Angela nearly screamed when she found out. She took charge of wedding logistics, flowers, catering, color palettes. At first, I hesitated. The memory of my disastrous anniversary party turned divorce. Then I shook off the doubt. This time, it would be different. We decided to hold the ceremony at Sunset Valley Resort, the very place Dean had humiliated me. An audacious choice, but I wanted to reclaim that space, turn it from a nightmare to a fresh memory. The resort's manager was more than happy to accommodate, especially after seeing the good press from Blue Bay's success. One afternoon, Angela and I huddled in my studio, flipping through fabric swatches for bridesmaids' dresses. She paused, eyes glittering. This is pure poetic justice, you know. You're returning to the scene of the crime, but as a triumphant bride. I gave a nervous laugh. Triumphant might be too strong. But yeah, I'm not the same Cynthia who was crushed that night. Angela picked a pale teal swatch. What do you think? Coastal vibe, matches the sea, perfect for a seaside wedding. I grinned, imagining the resort's outdoor patio once again strung with fairy lights, except this time, no heartbreak. Perfect, I said softly, a flutter of anticipation in my chest. Right then, my phone chimed with a message from Cameron. I have a lead on your orchard. Let's talk tonight. My heart soared. He hadn't forgotten his promise to try to reacquire Mom's apple farm. The final missing piece of my old life. Ket Chuang. I set down the swatch, eyes shining. Angela noticed and nudged me playfully. Looks like the orchard might come back to you too, huh? Maybe, I whispered, a sense of wonder filling me. Everything I thought was lost my orchard. My self-worth seemed to circle back in ways I never imagined. My new wedding plan no longer felt like a hasty patch on old wounds, but a bold statement of second chances. Wedding day. A soft, rose-tinted dawn broke over Sunset Valley Resort, painting the waves in pale gold. I stood in a private suite on the upper floor wearing a simple ivory gown with lace detailing across the shoulders. My reflection in the mirror showed nervous eyes, but also a confidence I barely recognized. I've come a long way from that broken woman Dean left in tears, I reminded myself. Angela fussed with my hair, pinning a small seashell comb in place. You look gorgeous, she declared, stepping back to admire her handiwork. I inhaled, heart fluttering. Outside, I glimpsed white chairs arranged on the sandy terrace, floral arches swaying in the breeze. Cameron and I had chosen a sunlit open-air ceremony, the ocean as our backdrop. As if on cue, the door cracked open, revealing an apologetic staff member. Miss Ashford? There's a situation. Mr. Holloway is downstairs demanding to speak with you. My pulse skipped. Dean. Angela met my startled gaze, her face darkening. Seriously? I swallowed. It's fine, I'll handle it. Angela grabbed my arm. Cynthia, let security do it. This is your wedding day. But a calm resolve settled in me. I need to face him, once and for all. A few minutes later, I found Dean near the resort's side entrance. He looked disheveled in a wrinkled shirt and no tie, hair messed as if he'd run his hands through it repeatedly. Security stood a few feet off, watchful. The entire area felt tensely quiet. He turned when he saw me in my gown, eyes flicking with something like regret, or maybe envy. Cynthia, he muttered. I stood tall, letting the wind rustle the lace on my shoulders. What do you want? He hesitated, gaze roaming the decorated chairs, the wedding arch visible through the glass doors. I heard you were getting married here of all places. He trailed off, biting his lip. I feel angry. This used to be us, you know? A surge of old hurt threatened, but I steadied myself. Dean, you ended us in the cruelest way possible. You humiliated me, tried to ruin my career, even claimed that watch as marital property. Now you want sympathy? He squeezed his eyes shut. I made mistakes, okay? Big ones, lost my company, my status. His voice cracked. I have to move away, nothing left for me here. My heart twisted, remembering the young man I'd once loved before he turned cold. But that didn't excuse his actions. You destroyed what we had, I said quietly. You said I wasn't worth it. You were wrong. He stared at me, tears gathering at the corners of his eyes. I was wrong, but you're marrying him now. You have everything I cut in. I found a new life after you. Not because I had everything handed to me, but because I fought for it. Maybe you can rebuild, too, but not by clinging to old grudges. He let out a ragged sigh. Then I guess I'll go. A swirl of emotions flitted through me. Sorrow for what we'd once been, anger for what he'd done, relief that I was free. Goodbye, Dean, I said, voice soft but firm. I hope you learn from this. Without another word, he turned and walked away, shoulders slumped. Security let him pass through the exit into the bright day. I inhaled a shaky breath, feeling finality in the air like closing a chapter of a very painful book. Back upstairs, I rejoined Angela, who searched my face anxiously. You okay? Did he? I forced a smile. It's done, I whispered, blinking away tears. He's gone. For good. She pulled me into a tight hug. Then let's get you married, bride. Down on the sandy terrace, music floated in gentle waves. Rows of guests stood as I walked the aisle, seashells scattered along the path. My heart hammered, but I glowed with the certainty that this union was built on respect and shared dreams. Cameron waited under a simple floral arch, the ocean sprawling behind him. He wore a light linen suit, a touch of salt wind ruffling his hair. His eyes shone with unwavering affection, and I felt my chest swell with gratitude that life gave me this second chance. Hand in hand, we exchanged vows, words about partnership, trust, and building something lasting not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. With each sentence, memories of heartbreak receded, replaced by hope. When we were pronounced husband and wife, I caught a glimpse of Angela wiping her eyes, Angela's boyfriend cheering, and a small crowd bursting into applause. The resort staff looked on approvingly, the same staff who once witnessed my darkest hour. This time, the lights and music heralded joy, not tragedy. Ket Chuang. Cameron slipped his arms around me in our first wedded kiss. The ocean breeze lifted my veil, and sunlight dazzled off the water. I breathed in the scent of salt and flowers, tears of happiness staining my cheeks. Yes, I'd come full circle at Sunset Valley Resort. This time I left the stage not in shame, but in celebration, my new husband's hand clasped firmly around mine, surrounded by applause that felt like genuine approval, not forced politeness. And Dean was but a vanishing figure in the distance, overshadowed by the bright horizon I now embraced. I still had salt in my hair from the wedding when Cameron and I strolled down the same beach at Sunset Valley Resort, hand in hand, our brand new rings glinting under the midday sun. Chairs were already being cleared, floral arches disassembled, the resort staff tidying up as if the biggest day of my life had never happened. Except it wasn't over. We'd planned a small gathering right on the sand, intimate, yet significant to announce something that had crystallized in our minds during the whirlwind of our engagement. Green Horizon. I stood with Cameron in front of a modest podium. A few reporters gathered around, their cameras aimed at us. The air smelled like sea spray and newly cut blooms. My heart fluttered with nerves, but I squeezed Cameron's hand for reassurance. Angela, my best friend, newly anointed wedding coordinator extraordinaire, nudged me gently. "They're rolling, Cyn." I exhaled. Here goes. My voice carried over the mild hush of the waves. "Thank you all for being here. Today isn't just the celebration of our marriage, it's the start of something new for our community." My gaze skimmed across the small audience, which included a few local journalists and some supporters from Blue Bay. In the distance, I noticed a couple strolling down the shoreline, oblivious to our event. It was a peaceful contrast to the chaos I'd known mere months ago. Cameron stepped up to the mic, smile warm. "We're thrilled to announce the formation of Green Horizon, a foundation dedicated to helping victims of financial abuse rebuild their lives, particularly women and small business owners who've been undermined by unethical practices." A camera flashed, capturing the moment. I couldn't help but recall my own darkest days after Dean's betrayal, how I'd sunk into that pit of self-doubt. This foundation, forged by our personal trials, felt like the most meaningful step forward. I continued, voice catching slightly with emotion. Once, I lost everything: my confidence, my orchard, even my sense of self, to an unfair system and a manipulative partner. But with the right support, I found a way back. We hope Green Horizon can offer that same lifeline. Reporters fired off questions, details about funding, partnerships, how we'd handle legal support for victims. Cameron answered calmly, a mix of private donations, a portion of Blue Bay's revenue, plus philanthropic backing from like-minded investors. Abigail, our legal whiz, would provide pro bono counsel to those who couldn't afford representation. As the applause died down, the small crowd dispersed, some lingering to congratulate us or request interviews. I lingered by the podium, staring at the ocean's horizon. The memory of being humiliated here not so long ago felt like a distant nightmare. Angela wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Damn, girl, you're unstoppable now." I let out a soft laugh, blinking away tears. It still feels surreal. A year ago, I was broken. She leaned in, whispering, "You rebuilt yourself, and you're giving others the chance to do the same." Her eyes shone with pride, A flicker of movement caught my eye. Dean's mother, Brooke Holloway, stood near the edge of the gathering, hands clasped together. I hadn't expected her, but she'd politely replied to our invitation. Taking a breath, I excused myself from Angela and moved toward Brooke. She gave a tentative smile. "Cynthia, I just wanted to say congratulations on everything, the wedding, the new foundation." My heart clenched a bit. I couldn't forget she was Dean's mother, but she'd reached out months ago, warning me of his dirty tactics, and I had no doubt she was caught in the middle. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I appreciate that." She glanced at my ring, then at the waves. "It's good, seeing you so happy and channeling your pain into something constructive. I only wish Dean could learn from that." I swallowed. He made his choices. Maybe one day he'll grow from them. Part of me hopes so, for her sake at least. Brooke sighed, tears glossing her eyes. "He's left town, you know. Said he needs a fresh start somewhere else." She forced a sad smile. "I'm not defending him, just he's my son. I can't help but hope he finds his way." I nodded, sympathy tugging at me. Every villain has someone who loves them. I hope he does, too. We exchanged a brief hug, a gesture I never imagined happening. She offered a tremulous smile before drifting away with a quiet, "Good luck." When the press finally packed up, the beach felt strangely calm. Cameron joined me, sliding his arm around my waist. "You okay?" I nodded, gaze on the rolling surf. "Green horizon is real now, something we can grow long after the wedding buzz fades." He brushed a kiss on my temple. "It's a fitting tribute to both our journeys." I found myself recalling the orchard again, how I'd sacrificed it for Dean's watch, how my mother's memory felt tarnished by that mistake. But maybe my orchard wasn't truly gone. I'd learned my love for nature wasn't bound to any single piece of land. And who knew? Cameron had hinted we might still recover it. Ket Chuang. I let my hand graze the small sign that read, "Green Horizon Foundation Building Hope from Hardship." My chest swelled with a healing ache, something between sadness and joy. Yes, I once felt doomed, but now the horizon stretched wide, unburdened. 1 week after our foundation launch, Cameron told me he had a surprise. He drove us inland, away from the beaches and modern architecture, into a region of rolling hills and quiet farmland. Each mile nudged my heartbeat faster. Could it be? I tried not to let my hopes soar too high. Eventually, we turned down a winding country lane lined with clusters of wildflowers. A wooden sign read, "Applewood Valley Private Property." My heart clenched. This was the orchard I'd sold. Over fences, I glimpsed trees in neat rows, leaves flickering under the late afternoon sun. Cameron parked by a rustic gate. He glanced at me. "Ready?" My throat felt tight. "You really found it?" He nodded, eyes warm. The developer who bought it ran into permit issues, never built that fancy housing he planned. For months, Abigail's been negotiating. And well, we made an offer. Breath trembling, I followed him through the gate. The air smelled like apple blossoms, even though the harvest season was months away. Memories flooded me of childhood picnics with Mom, the crackle of leaves underfoot, the sweet tang of fresh cider. We walked amid the trees, branches swaying gently overhead. Many looked a bit neglected, no caretaker trimming or pruning, but they were still alive, resilient, much like me. At a clearing, Cameron stopped, motioning for me to look